Hello everyone, welcome to another video from Deborah at Attic Lane. In today's video I'm going to show you 10 cards made using the Julie Loves kit for August 2017 and it's called Julie Loves Patchwork. So here you can see a 6x6 pad with some really gorgeous Ditsy pages in them, just perfect for patchworking. And next up is the stamp set. Now, the stamps aren't included as part of the kit. You have to order them separately, and you get a little loyalty sticker there that you can add to your loyalty card. And then at the end of 6 stamps, I think it is, you will get a free stamp set. There are some pop-out things. There are some pop-out flowers and some pop-out butterflies. And there are many tag sheets. You get 3 each of all these different designs. And they're terrific. There's a great selection. There's absolutely loads of them. And there's some printed sentiments on those as well. These are some pop-out flowers that you will curl round to create little roses. And around the borders there are extra paper designs as well. So on to card 1. And for this I've chosen the blue spotted page from the pad, and I'm just cutting it down to size because I want it to fit onto a white card base. And I'm using a light blue ink pad just to go around the edges of the paper to give it a bit of a border. I've taken one of the butterflies and I'm going to ink up the stamp set with a couple of the Ditsy flowers, and I'm going to stamp those on using clear Versamark ink, and then I'm going to cover them in white embossing powder and I'm going to heat set that. Once that's heat set, I'm going to take some picked raspberry distress oxide ink and I'm going to smudge it all over the butterfly, and that makes the little Ditsy prints really pop nicely. Now, to complete the butterfly look, I've taken one of the other little stamps from the set that's actually a heart on a pin, and I've used it as antennae for the butterflies. And now, because I've got a black inked sentiment at the bottom there with love, which is from the stamp set as well, I'm going to add some black around the rest of that card for balance, and I'm using a little black heart again from the stamp set just to do that. And with that, my card is complete. On to card 2. My apologies, the white balance went a little bit screwy, so the colours changed a little on the video. Again, I'm cutting down a piece of paper from the paper pack to create a background on my base card, and I'm going to cut out quite a large aperture using a rectangular die. I haven't actually stuck that blue piece of card to the base piece of card because I want to put a layer between the base card and the frame, and the layer is a piece of gauze or organza. You could use any fine piece of fabric that you have, and I've used double-sided tape because I think that will be stronger than normal glue to hold that in place. Now I'm going to glue up the frame and I'm going to position that on top. So now I'm going to take the dress from the pop-out toppers, and I'm going to use the space left behind, the negative space, as a stencil. I'm going to draw around this with a pencil and then I'm going to cut it out. The reason for doing that is because I want to glue the dress on top of that fine gauze fabric, but I don't want it to glue through to the back of the card, so I'm going to use my white mask that I've just created as a backing. Again, I'm using double-sided tape to stick the backing piece in place first, and then that will also mean that I've got enough glue on there to attach the dress on top. I want to add a sentiment, so I'm going to use a little stamp from the stamp set, and I've put that onto white card and I'm just going to glue that into place. And now I'm using some Wink of Stella clear just to give that bow on the dress a little bit of zing, and I'm going to complete the look with some glossy accents. And my card is complete. Onto card 3, and I'm using a craft card base, and I've got 2 ink pads. They are Versacolor and they are green tea and evergreen, Although the important thing is that I have two different colours, one is lighter and one is darker, and I'm using a zigzag stamp from the stamp set just to stamp over the bottom of that card, and it will make it look a little bit like grass. And I'm doing that because I want my elephant from the Toppers kit to look as if it's anchored onto the card. Now I've taken the heart shape, and I'm also going to use the frame that's left from the heart. I'm going to cut around it so it's only the red that's left. I don't know if you can see, I've added some acetate to that heart as well, and I'm going to use some very, very thin double-sided foam tape to go around the outside of it, because the balloon is going to be a shaker balloon. There will inevitably be bits that you have to cut off, so I'm just going around this with my scissors to neaten it up so that the foam tape doesn't show when it's actually stuck on my card. I think you can see the acetate glimmering a little bit there. So now I'm going to glue down my elephant. Once I've stuck down my elephant, I'm also going to stick down the first part, the base of the balloon. I'm going to pop some little brightly coloured sequins on the top of that. Then I'm going to remove the foam backing from around the acetate layer of the heart, and I'm going to stick it on top. And to complete the card, I'm going to use a black marker pen to add a string from the balloon so it looks as if the elephant is holding it. On to card 4. Card 4 is a little bit more complex, so I'm starting with 2 of the 6x6 sheets from the pad, and I'm sticking one on top of the other. I've used a wet glue to make it easier for me to position those and make sure they're exactly on top of each other. And now I'm going to cut them in half. Now I'm measuring 1 inch up from the base on each of those cards, and I'm going to use my ruler and pencil to mark off the angle from the 1 inch measured up down into the corner on each one. And then I'm going to cut those pieces off. So now I'm going to use my scorer to help me score lines in place so that I can fold the paper and create a concertina layer. What's important here is the ratio. So the first line that I scored is 2/8 of an inch, and the second line that I scored is 4/8 of an inch, and then I go 2/8 of an inch, 4/8 of an inch. That just happens to be because that's how my scorer is set out, but the important thing is the ratio. So now I'm going to begin folding each of those pieces of card over and over and again, and you'll see the pattern begins to emerge so that you have the coloured paper on top, and the blue spotty paper will show ever so slightly underneath in the folds. And you should be able to see the ratio that I talked about is half of one measurement to the whole of another measurement. So if you did half an inch, you would follow it with 1 inch, then half an inch and 1 inch, and you would continue until you've completed the whole of the piece. What we're trying to create is the effect of a pleat. So now I'm going to use my double-sided tape again because it's nice and strong, and I'm going to put it into the smallest of my folds. And then I'm going to remove the backing paper, and you'll see I can fold it in place and it will actually hold it quite firmly. And I'll keep doing that until I complete each layer. So now it's all stuck in place, and I just need to complete the last fold, and I'm going to turn the blue spotty paper back on itself. I'm really glad I've got visuals to help me describe this, because I don't know if the words are really doing it. There we go. So you can see the effect that we're getting, and there's that tiny little bit of blue showing through underneath. And you complete the second piece as well. Now once they're done, they're quite curly, but again you use double-sided tape to go across the back of each of the pieces. This has the double effect of holding the pleats in place, and it also means that you've got good adhesion when you go to stick it onto your card base. and you can see the difference it makes, and it really does help them lie nice and flat. So now I'm cutting a piece of blue spotty card, and I'm going to put that on my base card, and I'm going to this is pretty much how the card is going to look, so I just need to trim everything down. I'm going to add a layer of red across the centre of the card, and I'm just preparing that piece of paper now. So this is a fun bit, putting it all together. So I'm going to put my blue spotty piece of card on the top, and then I'm going to take the two pieces of pleated card. I'm going to mark where the centre point is, remove the back of my adhesive tape, and then I can glue them in position. I'm going to take that thin strip of red paper and I'm going to back it with some foam adhesive, and then I'm going to position it and glue it in place. I'm going to cut out a piece of white card using my rectangular die, and I'm going to use that to stamp a little sentiment from the stamp set onto it, and I'm going to add a couple of buttons for detail, and this is the die set that I used, and I'm going to glue that in place. I've got a piece of ribbon and I don't know how to tie bows, so I just do it the same way that I would tie a shoelace, and that's all I've done here, and then I'll cut off the ends and I'll glue it in place. And once the bow is glued in place, my card is complete. And on to card 5. I'm going to use all 3 of the heart-shaped tags from the kit, and I'm going to cut some strips of my favourite papers from the set. And I'm also going to use a little bit of lace that I happen to have in my stash. So you can see I'm thinking about how I'm going to layer these up. I'm going to cut some additional strips of paper, and I'm also going to use one of the borders from the toppers. Now those borders are going to go top and bottom of my card, and I want to put a sentiment on my central heart, so I've put thanks, which is one of the stamps from the set, and I'm going to layer everything up, and then when I'm happy with the positions I'll glue it all in place. There were some layers left hanging over the edges of the card, and I've just cut those off. So now I'm going to glue my hearts in place. And because I've used black for the sentiment, I need to balance out the black in the rest of the card, and I've used a tiny little heart just to go on the top of those 2 hearts that are upside down. And with that, my card is complete. Now for card 6, I'm starting by showing you a cushion that I made when I actually took patchwork classes some years ago, and this was the inspiration for card 6, which is going to be a log cabin patchwork design, or very loosely anyway. So I've chosen my strips of paper that I'm going to use. I've cut them all to about 1/4 inch in thickness, and I've glued them in place on my base card. And I'm not going to worry about the edges overhanging the card because I'll simply cut them down. And that's a finished design, which will be mounted onto white card with quite a wide white border. I'm going to add a sentiment, and I've cut a piece of white card so that it fits really nicely inside one of the pink borders from one of the tag sheets. I'm going to add a fishtail to my white card, and then I'm going to match it with the pink card. Now I'm going to use some of the flowers that are part of the kit. So you pop these out and you'll see they are spiral cut pieces of card, and you simply roll them up. I have a little tool that's quite a good shape to get these started, and just keep rolling them around, and when you get to the end you apply a blob of glue, and then you squeeze your rose layers or petal layers, I don't quite know what to call them, you squeeze them onto the glue, and then you have a little flower. Now I've taken one of the tags, again from the kit, but I'm not using it as a tag. I'm going to use it to cut out some little leaves, and the reason I've chosen that is because it was a lovely little green Ditsy pattern. I've cut out 2 leaves, I've rolled them around a little bit at the edges to give them some dimension, and I'm going to glue them in place. And my card is finished. On to card 7. Card 7 is a very simple card, so I've taken one of my standard cards that already has a fold across the top. I'm going to find equidistance between that top fold and the outside edge, and I'm going to fold it over again. So I've made a sort of a gatefold card. Now I'm going to use one of the large hexagons from the kit that has a word on it, and I've also selected 2 of the papers, and I've cut them to size so that they will fit into the front panel and then one of the back panels. And then when I fold the card over, I can apply my little hexagon, and the little tags I'm pointing out top and bottom are actually where it was secured in place in the set, so you don't need to measure, you just need to use those to help you position it, glue it in place, and then I'm finishing mine with some clear Wink of Stella on the words to give it some sparkle. For card 8, I've used my die cut to cut a square aperture in the front of a craft base card, and I'm going to create a frame from one of the nice papers from the pad, and I'm going to layer a smaller die inside a larger die. And when I cut those out, you can see that that's the frame that I want, and I'm going to glue that in place on my craft card. Now I've made up a number of the flowers that we made on the last card, and I'm going to position them in place on the inside of the card. When I'm happy with the positions, I'm going to glue them. Now I've taken a tag, which this time I will use as a tag, and I'm going to glue that in place, and I'm going to pop a little sentiment on there from the stamp set. And the sentiment says "with love." Now I'm taking some twine, and I've taken 3 strands, and I'm going to tie them into a bow, and I'm going to glue that in place on my tag. Now, as a finishing touch, if you happen to have Nouveau drops, they're a very handy little thing just to squirt in the middle of those flowers to give them a little bit of extra dimension. The one that I'm using is called Apple Green. It just finishes the card off nicely, and I like that that colour matches the tag. On to card 9. For card 9, I've taken 2 of the sheets from the paper pad, and I've cut them into 1/2-inch strips, and I'm adding a fishtail to the bottom of each one. You can see I've positioned them on a piece of white base card, and I'm going to glue them into place now. I'm using a damp glue because that allows me flexibility to move them if I don't get it right first time. And once they're all glued on, some of them will overhang, and I'm just going to cut those pieces off. I have a piece of green paper from the pad again, which I've cut a strip from, and I'm going to adhere that to my card. I'm also going to use the pink tag from the tag set, again as a backing. I'm not using it as a tag. I'm using it as a backing for one of the sentiments, which again is from the toppers set. So I'm just cutting around the edges so I leave a nice pink edge on that, and then I will stick the green piece of paper down. I'll put some foam pads on the back of my hexagon. I think it's a hexagon. If it's 6 sides, that doesn't make it a sexagon. That's completely wrong, isn't it? But I will stick that in place, and with that my card will be finished. For card 10, I'm using the flowers from the toppers kit, and I'm just going to roll over the edges. Now I'm going to cut out the petals of one of those flowers because I want to add them to the inside of the first flower to make that look a little bit fuller. And again, I'm just going to go around the tops of them. I'm just going to curl them around that little pokey tool that I have, just to make them look a bit more petally. And then when I'm happy with them, I'm going to put a spot of glue in the middle, and I'm going to glue those in place. And I've got some more of those flowers that I've already made up, and I'm going to complete the flower by pushing one of those right into the centre. Now I've used a craft base card, and you can see that I've made 2 of the big flowers, and I've surrounded those 2 flowers with a range of the little spiral flowers, the little roses. I've pushed the roses into the Versamark ink pad and then added gold embossing powder on the top and heat set them so it gives the flowers a little bit more sparkle. I've done the same with the sentiment, the happy birthday sentiment there. I've just put some gold embossing powder around the outside of that. And to complete the card, I'm adding dots of pure gold, just pearls from Imagination Crafts. So I will say thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you got some ideas, and I'm going to leave you with a close-up of all of the cards and a little bit of music.